everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Music Weekly. It is January 20th, 2023, and this is the episode where I give you guys the big Prog headlines for the week, talk about some latest Prog singles that have been coming out, and give you updates about the channel, what's come this past week, and what you can expect going forward next week. So, should be a lot of fun. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, I would encourage it. It really helps to support the channel. I do this every weekend, usually Fridays, but sometimes Saturdays. It's just a good way to give a more laid-back approach to some of the Prog news that's coming out. Just a chance to talk to you guys and give you guys some updates and allow you guys in the comments to talk about this stuff, you know, if this is what interests you and if you have other things to add. I always enjoy when people add extra news items that I didn't see during the week or that I just didn't have time to include in the show, so that's always much appreciated. So first of all, item number one, I always like to start with new releases that are coming out today or this weekend, and of course, first and foremost, as I've been talking about it all week, is the new Riverside album, Identity, was released today. It's a really incredible album. I've been talking about it during this week. You can check out my review for it for full thoughts about it. I also did an album ranking for Riverside, as well as a top 5 of their best songs, in my opinion, at least my personal favorites. So it's a really notable, cool release from a really great heavy prog band that has a little bit of metal tendencies, but a great band that I think anyone who enjoys prog should like. So really great, solid new album to check out. And I even got my copy. We got the vinyl edition that I wanted to showcase. So this is the new album on vinyl. Really cool gatefold product here. And then, of course, the back with the track listing. And what's cool about this version is that it's a light blue variety, which I thought was really a nice color as well. So really a cool package, a great band, and really encourage you guys to check them out. This is just an incredible album. And so that's the number one album that's been out today, so I wanted to put that one in people's minds. Also released today, Katatonia, Sky Void of Stars, more on the metal side, maybe a doom metal project. A Swedish group that a lot of people are big fans of, Jonas Rinsky on vocals, who has a very deep, very interesting character to his voice, and it just sounds like a lot of people are giving this a lot of great reviews, that it's a really solid release in their already stellar catalog. You know, sorry to use the word stellar, but yeah, a really cool release that I think many would check out and enjoy. Item number 2 on the Prog headlines list, Jethro Tull announced their 23rd studio album, RökFlöte. This is really exciting. They're releasing this April 21st, 2023, this year on Inside Out Music. This is following last year's release of the Zealot Gene, which a lot of people really enjoyed. A cool comeback for Jethro Tull, one of those big, major legacy prog acts that's still kicking. Of course, Ian Anderson is really helming the project nowadays, and this is an interesting album, it seems. A 12-track record based on the characters and roles of some of the principal gods of the Old Norse paganism, and at the same time exploring the rock flute, which Jethro Tull has made iconic. So the name is a little bit of a play on the rock flute, and it's spelled in an interesting way, ROKFLOTE, so really quirky, interesting way to say that. And there's also a single released, which I'll mention also in the Prog singles list, if you look at the description, called, I believe, Ginun Gagap is the name of it. There's a cool animated video for that. A first single from the album. Sounds really good. Solid, modern Jethro Tull. So should be fun. A lot of cool different formats that this is coming on, including 2 limited deluxe formats that include bonus demo material, extensive liner notes, a Blu-ray featuring Dolby Atmos, 5.1 surround, alternate stereo mixes by Bruce Sword of the Pineapple Thief, as well as a bonus track and in-depth interview with Ian Anderson. The album will also be available digitally in the spatial audio formats Dolby Atmos and Sony 360RA. So really cool. A lot of different formats, a lot of fun ways to check out this music. It should be a really notable, fun release for this year, and I'll definitely be reviewing and covering it on the channel. Maybe do a little bit of a Jethro Tull week. I did do a Jethro Tull album ranking last year, so you can check out those rankings, but it'll be interesting maybe to update that list and see how this new one sits amongst it. So should be a fun release for everyone into that band and prog in general, really. So, item number 3, multi-instrumentalist Carly Bryant quits Big Big Train, and Oskar Holldorff steps in as a replacement. This, of course, I'm a huge fan of Big Big Train. I'm always talking about any updates or news in their camp. And this is a pretty big update. Carly Bryant has been on their last couple releases. She's a really cool facet for the band. She really contributed a great song with the title track of Welcome to the Planet, which showed the band doing something in a slightly new direction. So she was giving an interesting new flavor to the group. I believe she was a keyboard player, did some vocals as well for the group and some writing. So it's a shame that she's not going to continue with the band, but of course it's a amicable split. She had a lot of things in her schedule that just didn't allow for her to be present with the band. She wasn't able to attend their tour, their few live dates that they did last year, which is why Oskar Holldorff from Dim Gray had to step in, and he's becoming a permanent member of the band, which it seems a lot of people are really happy about, because he really filled those shoes really well. I really liked Dim Gray's album from last year, Firmament. It was one of my top 40 albums of the year, so really happy about that development, and we'll see how he fits into the group, even in the writing aspect and on their new studio record, whenever that may come out. So it should be fun to see how he does. And I believe Carly Bryant, it says, is working also on a solo album to come out on Big Big Train's English Electric Records. So she's not totally absent from the scene. We'll still be hearing from her in her own capacity. So that should be a good thing to look for, is her solo record. But just interesting to see the Big Big Train march on and steam ahead with a new lineup change. There's so many lineup changes in the last couple of years for varying circumstances, so it's interesting to see how they develop and how they're always incorporating new members into the fold. So, item number 4, Haken drop a new single, Taurus, from their upcoming album Fauna. Their album Fauna is coming out March 3rd. I've been talking a lot about Haken. I love the band. They have this really cool, heavy style of prog, very much in the progressive metal vein, but with a lot of quirky, more symphonic prog elements also thrown into the mix. Very modern and very sophisticated approach, I think, in how they approach prog music. One of the most innovative and interesting modern prog bands in existence. And this third single from their album is really interesting, and once again, very different from the 2 singles they've released already, Nightingale and Alphabet of Me, which were both fantastic in their own rights. I felt like Nightingale was a bit more of the proggy, jazzier side of their sound. Alphabet of Me was them experimenting in pop elements to their already quirky sound and more indie rock elements, perhaps. This one shows a bit more of their heavier side. It's the opening track of the album, and they want to, I believe, open with a heavy blast and have some really heavier moments on this, but it's still unique and an interesting exploration for the band. So I really enjoyed the single. I think it bodes well for the album in full. Can't wait to hear the full album. I think it's going to be a really strong release for the year, maybe an album of the year contender. So it really is interesting. The album Fauna each track seems to represent a different animal. It's an interesting concept. This one, Ross Jennings talks about the song's lyrics were written roughly at the same time we all started hearing about the devastation and crisis happening in Ukraine. I was already writing the piece based on the annual migration of the wildebeest, with strong references to people traveling in herds in straight numbers. Suddenly I realized I had an anchor for what the song could be about, and knowing this gives it all the more emotional weight. We're all on some sort of a journey towards salvation or enlightenment, sometimes out of choice or not, and we need to leave the past behind us and make new beginnings. We only have each other, and belief and hope are our strongest allies. So a really cool description of the lyrics and the meaning of the song. And so once again, just excited for the album and excited for Haken's activity this year. They're doing a co-headlining tour with Between the Buried and Me in Europe in early 2023. This should be fun to hear them play tracks from the new album. So really looking forward to that and wanted to cover it. Item number 5, Pink Floyd is celebrating their 50th anniversary of Dark Side of the Moon with a big new box set. This is like a massive piece of history here. This is a big big sprawling set with so many different components and things to it. This will be released on March 24th this year. There's pre-orders happening already. It's this big, massive thing with a million different things in it. This big deluxe box set that I felt like I had to talk about all of the inclusions of what's in the box set itself, because there's so much here. It includes a CD and gatefold vinyl of the new 2023 remastered studio album and Blu-ray plus DVD audio featuring the original 5.1 makes and remastered stereo versions. The set also includes additional new Blu-ray disc of Atmos makes plus CD and LP of The Dark Side of the Moon live at Wembley, Empire Pool, London, 1974. So a lot of different components to this. They have a whole big track listing on various news sites that have been talking about this. So should be a really cool release celebrating a seminal album. Many consider it maybe the best prog album of all time, so it's a really notable release in the prog realm, and I'm sure a lot of people will be eating up this box set, which includes so much stuff in it. Multiple CDs and LPs and Blu-rays, 5.1 mixes and Atmos and all of that kind of stuff is going to be included. Of course, also a big 160-page hardback book as well, 76-page music book, memorabilia, all of the bells and whistles if you get the big, massive deluxe version of this, which will set you quite backwards in cost, but could be a notable, fun way to experience the album and to find little cool odds and ends and cool new remastered sounds. It's like, how much can they really build upon The Dark Side of the Moon? I mean, there's been so many editions of this and people delving into the album and remixing and all of the kind of stuff. It's like, how much more can you mine from this classic album? But apparently there's more to mine from it. So if that interests you, please check that out. Now for some bonus items, there's quite a bit of stuff that I noticed this week that was really interesting to me. I saw that Southern Empire unveiled their brand new singer, Shaun Holton. Southern Empire is an incredible prog band it's been a few years since their previous release. I believe it was called Civilization. But this new release is going to be titled Another World, which was slated to come out last year, I remember, but I guess it got pushed into this year. So it should hopefully be coming this year. It says it's probably going to be released towards the middle of this year through GEP Records. But it's interesting. Their previous singer, Danny Lepresto, departed the band amicably not too long ago, late last year it seems, and so Shaun Holton is a new member who it seems like he has some notable credits to his name. He's released several albums under the name of Projected Twin. He's appeared on The Voice in Australia, it seems, so he's had some clout there. And it just seems like he's going to be a good fit for the group with an interesting new vocalist. So that should be interesting to check out if you're a fan of Southern Empire and what they're going to do. Another bonus item, John Anderson shares new trailers for Elias' sequel Zamran. This has been a long time in the works, it seems. Long-awaited follow-up to the 1976 album Elias of Sunhilla, which I know is a favorite for many of my viewers. So some really cool sounds and a really great promise for what could come from this sequel album that's been a long time in the works. Anderson has been discussing the possibility of this for over 20 years now. It's been previously referred to as Zamran, Son of Elias, or the Songs of Zamran, Son of Elias, and it's been talked about taking many different forms throughout the years. And so it seems in his latest discussion about it in March 2022, he told Prog magazine it'll be in 4 movements lasting over 4 hours. The first and second movements are finished. They're 55 minutes and an hour. And then he's been working on the other movements to it. So we'll see how that comes to fruition. But for now, there's really some cool trailers that I'll link in the description that really showcase a brilliant sound from him and really harken back to that Elias of Sunhilla feel, and I think it's really shows some promise when and if these albums are released. So next, Sound of Contact's Matt Dorsey announces a new solo album called Let Go. So Sound of Contact members are really omnipresent right now in the prog scene, with E-Molecule coming out featuring several other Sound of Contact members, but this should be cool as well. it stands as a blend of all the artists that he tends to like: Rush, Yes, Genesis, Pink Floyd, XTC, The Police, Peter Gabriel, Steely Dan, and more. Can be described as progressive pop rock. So this should be cool. On it, Matt sings and plays guitar, bass, keyboards, percussion, and on 2 of the songs, the drums. Marco Miniman provides drums on tracks, as well as Jonathan Mover, and Dave Kersner performs a keyboard solo. So really some interesting directions there. The album is due out April 7th, 2023. So another new album to look forward to in the Sound of Contact umbrella. So that should be a cool one to look for. I also noticed, I wanted to mention briefly, not really prog related per se, but a lot of people who love prog music love all forms of music, obviously. And David Crosby of Crosby, Stills and Nash passed away at age 81, a huge figure in music. So I wanted to mention that briefly. He'll be missed and has quite a legacy behind him of great, incredible music, especially with Crosby, Stills and Nash. Just those vocal blends and harmonies are iconic and have inspired tons of artists moving forward. So that is something I wanted to mention also. So quickly going through the Prog singles list. As I mentioned in the Prog headlines, I talked about Haken's new single, Taurus. That's on the list, as well as Jethro Tull's new single, Jinun Gagep. And so also on the list, I have The Ocean's new track, Pre-Boreal. This is a prog metal sextet from Germany. Surprise new single. There's not really much more details about an upcoming album, but I thought it sounded really cool, so I put it in the mix here. Animals as Leaders have a new video out for their track Red Miso, which was on their last year's album Parrhesia. Looks like it's getting released with a Dolby Atmos mix, so that should be exciting for those who like Dolby Atmos sounds. Just really cool technical prog metal there, instrumental stuff. Flor Jansen released Invincible, a more poppier track, but she's a notable vocalist, of course, who sings with Nightwish, and then, of course, is involved in all of Arjen Lucason's projects. So really someone that I'm following very closely, and she has a new solo album coming out this year. And this track is apparently very meaningful to many because it talks about the importance of healing from PTSD. So really meaningful track in there. I also want to mention, I'm going to put it in the description, it came real late in the game, but Rick Wakeman released a single also for the Dinner Party from his upcoming release that I want to mention as well. Some great instrumental keyboard work from the maestro himself, from Yes fame, of course. I'll talk more about that in the upcoming weeks ahead, but wanted to give a brief mention to that track. So that's the news items I have for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this and found something to check out yourself or something that you're interested in. Like I said, please let me know in the comments any other news items or any other singles that have come out that I may have missed. I would love to hear about it. As for my channel, this past week was Riverside week, as I've mentioned. Did an album review for their latest album, Identity, which I really love the album, and my thoughts are very clear on it in the review. I did an album ranking of their catalog, very consistent, very solid catalog that I really loved going through. And then I did a top 5 of my favorite of their songs, top 5 songs. So that was fun as well. This week coming up, we're getting back into finally Prog Song Sunday proper. Last week I did a special episode with Jana where we went through 10 of her favorite songs and she showed those to me. So it was a little bit of a turning the tables. But this week we're getting back into proper Prog Song Sunday, listening to a Rush classic, instrumental Rush classic song. So I think you guys will really enjoy that one. So that's coming up this Sunday. Also this week I'm going to be touching upon the new Tangent live album. I'm really excited to talk about that a bit. So that should be a fun one to get through. And then doing a top 5 about some 80s prog epics. So I'm trying to change out my records that I put behind me a little bit more. And I'm trying to put up records that are a little bit prognosticating what's to come on the channel a bit. So you can see the tangent behind me. You can see some 80s prog albums that may come into the discussion later this week. And of course the Riverside album that I've been talking about all this time, along with the smattering of some really cool new releases that I think are worth checking out. So just fun to update the wall behind me as I go through this process. So thank you guys so much. I know it's a little bit of another longer episode because there's a lot to cover, but I think it's been a fun time. Hopefully you're having fun on this episode, and I just hope you guys will follow me and continue listening to my shows. It's really a pleasure to have you guys aboard, and I'm really grateful to have this channel, and it means a lot to me. So thank you guys, and I'll catch you in a future episode. Bye. Enjoy the music.